Hello, everyone. Hopefully you all had a great Thanksgiving holiday. I know I did. Hopefully you all also partook in great food, great time with family, and terrific leftovers for the next few days, which I also did. And hopefully you all aren't too upset about going back into work tomorrow morning. You know, those post-holiday work days are the worst, but gotta go to work to make the monies, pay them bills, and make all those car payments and everything. But I do have a few Wrestle Kingdom reviews lined up for you, as I've been doing the past couple of months. My goal was to review the first 8 Wrestle Kingdom events as we head into Wrestle Kingdom 12 on January 4th, 2018. We are now up to Wrestle Kingdom 5, the final Wrestle Kingdom event that featured TNA talent. I wonder why. After getting through this card, you'll probably know, at least get a better idea as to why. But anyway, yeah, this is the 5th Wrestle Kingdom, and let's just start at the top of the card. Interpromotional match, we had the team of Bad Intentions, Giant Bernard and Carl Anderson, who is more famously known as the tag team partner of Luke Gallows, currently in WWE. Not long after this, he would actually join up in New Japan and be one of the big muscle pairings of the Bullet Club. And they faced Beer Money, James Storm and Robert Roode, one of the best tag teams, maybe the best tag team that TNA ever had. And the team of Muscle Orchestra, made up of Manabu Nakanishi and Strongman, which has got to be the lamest name for a wrestler ever. It probably sounds much cooler in Japan than it does here, but I'm sure that's a language issue. But anyway, this was a 3-way match for the IWGP Tag Team Championship, and good match. It was a good opener, really solid tag team action throughout. If you like Beer Money, this is a match worth watching because it's them in kind of a different setting from the typical TNA event. I won't say it was an amazing match or a match of the year candidate or anything like that, but a perfectly good, fun way to kick off the show. To the surprise of absolutely no one, Bad Intentions actually retained the titles here. But yeah, overall, just a good, solid match. If you like tag team wrestling, if you like tag team action, this was a good way to start the show. Next up was another tag team match. This one more of the high-flying, kind of junior heavyweight variety. Mascara Dorada, who WWE fans may know as Grand Metalik from the Cruiserweight Classic, and La Sombra, as they took on Hector Garza and Jushin Thunder Liger. This must have been at least not long before Hector Garza passed away, but this was a good match. Again, it's kind of one of those filler tag team matches that you see thrown onto cards like this, but again, it provided something different from the opening match, which was more straight up heavyweight tag team wrestling. This one was more of the high-flying cruiserweight / junior heavyweight type of variety, so you got a little bit fancier, but again, more of a filler match. Didn't really provide anything other than the action, but to that end, it was good, and hey, we get Jushin Thunder Liger on the card, which is also a plus. Next up is a weird one. Hiroyoshi Tenzan took on Takashi Iizuka in a Deep Sleep to Lose match, which I'm assuming is another one of those language barrier things where it probably sounds much better in Japanese than it does in English. But basically the rules of the match are you can only win by choking your opponent out unconscious. So not straight up submissions, you straight up had to knock your opponent unconscious. And when you look at this pairing, Tenzan and Iizuka, I can't help but kind of feel like this is sort of a precursor to what we would eventually see with the Never Openweight matches. Like the Ishis and Machabes and the Shibata and Ishii, Suzuki and some of the matches he's been having. Those type of matches, just hard-hitting, kind of stiff kind of stuff. And this match was kind of cut from that cloth and was fun for that. Good solid match. Tenzan got the win. It was just a pretty good solid match to have on the show. Next up was a hardcore match. Rob Van Dam, who I believe at this point had either... No, he wasn't yet. Okay, I was thinking, was he the TNA champion? No, he wasn't actually, because the TNA champion's actually appearing later on the show. It was Rob Van Dam taking on Toru Yano in a hardcore match. Rob Van Dam, I like Rob. Let me just make that clear. I do like Rob Van Dam as a talent. I don't think he's the greatest worker in the world. I think he's one of those guys that needed to rely on other people to kind of help him map a match together. Like, if you put him with someone like Jerry Lynn, the match is going to be great because Lynn knows what he's doing and understands psychology and knows how to put a match together that would make sense. And Rob brings such great charisma and such great action and flash to the matches that the two just melded together perfectly. But if you put Rob Van Dam with a run-of-the-mill guy like a Toru Yano, you're going to get a formulaic Rob Van Dam match, and that's pretty much what this was. Every key Rob Van Dam spot that you would imagine would be in a typical formula Rob Van Dam match you saw in this match, and that's all there was to it. Name the spot, it happened. You get the messed up Rolling Thunder spot, you get the the split-legged moonsault, the 5-star frog splash, all that other stuff. It's all stuff that you had pretty much become fairly predictable with Rob at this point. And not saying it was terrible, I'm just saying it was the same Rob Van Dam match I've seen 100 times, and that it didn't stand out for that reason. Rob Van Dam got the win. Again, not surprised by that, but moving on. Next up, we had Yuji Nagata and Minoru Suzuki in their second Wrestle Kingdom match. A match that I thought was pretty good. One of the better matches on the show. Not as good as the match that they had at the earlier Wrestle Kingdom, but pretty solid all the same. They have a really good chemistry together, and I think part of that is just because both guys are just such workhorses and put so much effort into the matches they're in that they give 110%. And to those guys, it's almost like age really is just a number because they go out there and just kill it every time they go out there, it seems. And work with each other as well as they do at a later stage of their careers, a testament to their ability and how good they really are. And I'm instantly interested in pretty much any Suzuki match because the guy is legitimately one of the scariest people in wrestling. You just look at the guy; he looks like a psychopath, and it's great. I think if WWE was willing to work around the language issue, I think he'd be great in WWE because he looks legit. Like, he looks like a legitimate crazy person, and I think that there's something to play with there. But overall, yeah, really good, solid match. One of the better matches on the show. Yuji Nagata got the win. Next up is a very good one, one that I really enjoyed. For the Junior Heavyweight Championship, Prince Devitt defending against Kota Ibushi. Prince Devitt retained, which kind of makes me realize, man, if you go back in Kota Ibushi's history, especially at Wrestle Kingdom, he's kind of that guy that's always over and always manages to get into these somewhat big title matches, but then always loses. Like, he's always on the outside looking in, which is kind of interesting. But you get Finn Balor, Prince Devitt, and Kota Ibushi together. You expect a really good, high-flying junior heavyweight style match, and that's exactly what this was. This was just an absolute display from two guys that are just absolutely great at what they do. And it's, you look at the matches that they were having, you look at the matches that Ibushi was having during the Cruiserweight Classic, and you look at some of the matches that Finn Balor had in NXT and a couple of times in the WWE, and then you go back and watch something like this, and you realize, man, they've been tearing it up for a really long time. And yeah, there's it seems like in New Japan there's no shortage of talent. You never know who's gonna be the cream that rises to the top. And you look at these two guys, and they're still great today. So obviously they invested in some good talents there. Next up was an interesting interpromotional match between New Japan and Noah. Takashi Sugiura and Yoshihiro Takayama versus Hiroki Goto and Kazuchika Okada. Okada was still fairly young at this point, but he's getting higher up that card. If you look at the Wrestle Kingdoms, he keeps creeping ever so slowly up the card. And this was a very basic tag match, though. I didn't think it was anything that special. Again, it has that interpromotional quality to it, which I think means a lot more to audiences who are more knowledgeable about both promotions. I admittedly don't have the biggest knowledge of Pro Wrestling Noah. I've watched very little of it. So this match didn't quite connect with me as some of the other ones did, but it was pretty much just a very basic tag match, and that's fine. There's not a whole lot else to say other than that, though. Team Noah did get the win. Moving on from there, we have the guy who was the TNA champion at this point, Jeff Hardy versus Tetsuya Naito for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. A match that when I saw that this was going to be happening, when I watched Wrestle Kingdom 5, I immediately thought, oh man, are we going to get, like, drugged out Hardy? Because this must have been, okay, this was January 4th, and Victory Road 2011 was in March, so this must have been during that period when Jeff Hardy was really, they were pushing him to the top as the top heel, and he was strung out, hurting guys. I remember when he hurt Mr. Anderson, Mr. Kennedy, with an errant chair shot. I think he had hurt some other guy, and he was clearly not in his right mind. And anyone who saw Victory Road 2011, that was pretty much the culmination of Jeff Hardy being out of his mind and being on whatever substance was screwing him up. Apparently, he was just strung out on somas the day of Victory Road 2011. And this match pretty much lived up to that. Fortunately, he didn't hurt Naito, which is good, but the match itself was kind of sloppy. Jeff Hardy's timing was a little off in certain places, and that really affected the match for me. And yeah, this was not for what should have been a high point of Hardy's career, because it was a big main event push as the top heel, as the guy who was representing the evil Hogan-Bischoff faction that was controlling the company. And he was whacked out of his mind and not in the best condition to be the top guy. And what should have been a high point in his career was actually his ultimate low point of his career, as we would see in March. But yeah, this is not the best Jeff Hardy that you would get in years prior or years after this. Fortunately, once he had the thing that happened at Victory Road 2011, Hardy kind of got himself straightened up after this, and there was never any big negative incidents again. But this was not a good time for him. Unfortunately, the best thing I can say about this match is thank God Naito didn't get hurt in the process of working with the guy. But yeah, Jeff Hardy got the win to the surprise of no one. And we move on from there. Shinsuke Nakamura versus Go Shiozaki. Again, we get more of Nakamura's development. He's getting closer and closer to the main event star that he would become. I mean, granted, he'd already been IWGP World Champion by this point, but he wasn't the fully developed King of Strong style that we know him as. And I thought this match was good. I thought it was a good, solid match. Nakamura got the win. It was an interpromotional match as well, so it was good that he gets kind of this big standalone victory on the biggest show of the year. And yeah, just another example of Nakamura just increasing his stock within New Japan as a huge star for the company. And next up we got Togi Makabe versus Masato Tanaka. ECW fans will probably be familiar with Masato Tanaka. So when I saw this match was taking place, I expected a good, hard-hitting, wild match, and that's what we got. And it ended up being one of my more favorite matches on this show. Good, solid stuff. Not a match of the year candidate or anything like that, but a good, solid battle between two hard-hitting guys, and really enjoyable. And Togi Makabe, that spider German he does off the top just looks so cool, and it's a perfect setup for the King Kong knee drop as his finish. So really like it whenever he breaks that out. But Togi Makabe got the win, so it's kind of an example of the older guy giving a rub to the younger guy at the time. And yeah, just a good solid match. Surprisingly high up on the card. Normally, again, and this is me probably being spoiled watching things like Wrestle Kingdoms 9, 10, and 11. Normally, the last match before the main event feels like it could be a semi-main event onto itself. Like, it could have been the main event. And it's almost like there's this habit now of ending Wrestle Kingdom on this big 1-2 punch where you get two stellar matches in a row. This one was just a perfectly solid match and wasn't necessarily that grandiose or that big, but was just a good solid match between two guys that complement each other's styles. So good solid stuff there. And that moves us into the main event, Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Satoshi Kojima. Not one of the stronger Wrestle Kingdom main events. I thought it was solid. Again, it's perfectly solid. It's perfectly fine. But when you compare it to the Tanahashi-Okada matches and Tanahashi and Muto and some of the other ones that have come up the pike, This one was just kind of solid. It was just kind of like, oh, okay, that happened. I think even looking at this match in 2017, looking back on it, and not knowing the result before watching the show, even I could tell, it's like, there's no way Tanahashi lost this match. There's no way. It's just, look at him, he looks like a star. Compared to Kojima, not that I'm putting down Kojima, but I just looked at it and was like, yeah, Tanahashi, this is not a cakewalk necessarily, but this isn't the most dynamic match for the Tokyo Dome main event. And sure enough, it was just kind of Tanahashi got the win, high fly flowed him, and continues rolling on as kind of Mr. Wrestle Kingdom, as he main evented more Wrestle Kingdoms than anyone else. But yeah, so that's Wrestle Kingdom 5. It's there's some good solid matches on it. I like the three-way tag as the opener. I like Makabe versus Tanaka. Main event's okay. Nakamura versus Go Shiozaki, that match is fine. So there's some good matches on there, but there's just not that... There's nothing that really blew my socks off. It was like, yeah, that was stellar. It was just kind of a fairly ordinary show from start to finish, and never descended into terrible, except for like the real dips in quality were the Jeff Hardy match and the to a degree the Rob Van Dam Yano match, because it was just I'd seen it so many times that it just had no impact on me. But yeah, it was just kind of an ordinary show and not really anything that special or that great in the long run. But moving right along from there, we have, in my opinion, a better show, Wrestle Kingdom 6. We opened up this show with the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championships on the line, as the team of Apollo 55, Prince Devitt, and Taguchi defeated the champions, the No Remorse Corp, Davey Richards and Rocky Romero. Rocky Romero, that dude's had like a shit ton of tag team partners, but you look at the names of the guys in this match, you got Prince Devitt, you got Davey Richards, Rocky Romero. These are guys that can work this type of match. And even Taguchi, who I don't think is one of the stronger talents, but you put him in there, like he's been tagging with Ricochet lately, and they've been having really good matches together. So you look at those four guys and you expect a really good junior heavyweight tag team match out of it, and that's exactly what you get. It was a perfectly good, perfectly solid opener with the amount of action you would expect out of this type of match, and we get a title change right up the top to start the show, so that's always a plus. Next up is an 8-man tag team match, again with more junior heavyweights in it. Jushin Thunder Liger, who was wearing a very spiffy silver outfit, if I must say, Kushida, Mascara Dorada, and Tiger Mask, taking on Atlantis, Taishi, Taka Michinoku, and Valente. Again, this is kind of one of those filler 8-man tags, 6-man tags, 10-man tags that New Japan is prone to doing, but fortunately, I have a familiarity with the talents involved, and like Liger and Michinoku and those type of guys. So I paid a little bit more attention to it than I normally would for those type of bouts, and it was solid. Again, it's pretty much just a pinball match where you're just expecting guys to flip and dive and do all that type of stuff. But for a filler match that's just meant to kill time and provide some action, it did its job just fine. Liger's team ultimately got the win. Next up is a very interesting one. Kazuchika Okada making his return to New Japan after taking a tour in America as Samoa Joe's Kato-like sidekick. Russo, what the hell? And see, that's one of those things, Russo, you had the guy who would go on to become the biggest star in Japan right now, and your big idea for him was to have him dress up like Kato and pal around with Samoa Joe for no reason, because Samoa Joe's got so many friends and so many sidekicks. It's just... Excuse me. And they were videotaping the Pope for some reason. Again, none of it made any sense. But anyway, this is Okada's return to the Tokyo Dome after taking some travel time outside of Japan as a young boy and really finding himself. And he comes back as the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada, to take on Yoshihashi in a match that was really kind of a squash. It was kind of a match where they just wanted to show off Okada, make him look like a star, and I think back to matches like Undertaker versus Jimmy Snuka at WrestleMania 7, or Earthquake versus Hercules at WrestleMania 6. Those type of matches where they just want to give a dominant win to somebody, showcase him, Jake the Snake Roberts versus George Wells at WrestleMania 2. Those type of matches where we're just showcasing a guy who we want to build up into a big star. And that was the sole purpose of this match. And it's really interesting to see it. He had the music. He had somewhat of the look that we would ultimately develop as the ace of New Japan. But little things weren't fully developed yet, like the Rainmaker clothesline. He didn't hit it that strongly this time. So it wasn't like this fully developed finisher that it would ultimately become. Like I said, the hair wasn't quite there. The Rainmaker pose wasn't fully developed yet. So he was still very much a work in progress, but they gave him a dominant win on the biggest show of the year, so it was clear that they had plans for him. And this is kind of a starting point for the growth into the Kazuchika Okada that I know today is one of my personal favorite wrestlers on the planet. I think he's outstanding. So it's really interesting to go back and watch this. This is like the real starting point of him becoming the guy that would top the PWI top 500. But moving on from there, we have another basic filler tag team match. Stack of Arms, a team made up of Masakatsu Funaki, not the Funaki you're thinking of, and Matsuyuki Kono taking on Wataru Inoue and Yuji Nagata. Again, pretty basic, solid tag match. They kind of had the old guys and the young guys teaming up with each other, so you kind of had like an old and new style tag teams working with each other. It was very basic, though. It was just very, very basic, but solid for what it was. Kind of a filler match. Stack of Arms ultimately got the win. That's really all there is to say about that. Next up was another tag team match. This one was a little bit more interesting, just because of who was involved. MVP and Shelton Benjamin taking on the Complete Players, Masato Tanaka and Yujiro Takahashi. Benjamin looked good here, and I thought he was a better fit for Japan than maybe he is in WWE. Because WWE, they really do emphasize you need a personality, and that's not Benjamin's strongest suit, but a setting like Japan where they focus on the athletic side of things, I think that's a better fit for him, personally. And MVP, I mean, I hate to be a jerk. He was one of those guys that the internet like fell over themselves just marking out for, and they said, this guy's the future. MVP's great. I never saw it in him. I never once saw him as anything more than just a run-of-the-mill mid-card guy. And maybe that's harsh, but, I watched the guy work, and it's like, it's just a bit. Like, I don't know if there's anything you can do with this beyond mid-card shit. I'm sorry, I just don't see it. And, he and Benjamin got the win here. It was a perfectly fine tag team match, but Benjamin looked like the talent of the team, and MVP looked like a guy just there to hit his character spots, like the ball in and all that stuff. So, I don't know. I was never sold on MVP. Never sold. But, and I've given him chances. Look, I watched him in New Japan. I watched him in TNA. I watched him in WWE from, like, his earliest point to the end of his run there, and I just never gravitated to the guy. I don't know what it is, but anyway, that match was fine for what it was. Then we got the IWGP Tag Team Championship match. Hiroshi Tenzan and Satoshi Kojima, Tenkozy, taking on Bad Intentions, Giant Bernard and Carl Anderson. Good, fun, rough and rowdy kind of power tag team match. I really enjoyed watching this. It was just, again, nothing great. It was just kind of four guys beating the crap out of each other, and that was perfectly enjoyable for me. The champions, Tenkozy, retained in what was a perfectly fine, good, solid match. I think this is, I'm trying to get my years straight, I think this is right before Giant Bernard left and went on to go become Lord Tensai, which, that didn't go so well. But, yeah, I think this is getting close to the end of Giant Bernard's run in New Japan, but anyway, moving on from there, we had Hiroki Goto taking on Takashi Segura in a singles match. Good, solid match. Again, this is part of the problem of going back and watching this and watching them in Japanese. I don't know what the build-up is to this, and I couldn't quite get the context to what the build-up is to this. But a perfectly solid match, and it's nice to see Hiroki Goto actually win at the the Tokyo Dome, because that would actually become his storyline years later. He would become known as the guy that would always lose the big ones. So it's nice to know it's like, oh, he wasn't always a loser at the Tokyo Dome. You know, he got this nice solid singles match win here. Then we got Togi Makabe defeating Yoshihiro Takayama. Again, perfect, a little short, but this was a perfectly fine match, perfectly solid, just more of a showcase for Makabe than anything else. I don't really have too much to say about that. Next up is one of them Noah versus New Japan matches. Go Shiozaki versus Marufuji, taking on two members of Chaos, Toru Yano and Shinsuke Nakamura, who by this point was almost fully developed into the King of Strong style, and was basically not the Nakamura that we all know and love today. It was this is one of those tag matches that actually kind of had like a main event feel to it. It had kind of a big match feel to it, and I think Nakamura's a big part of the reason why. I was a little surprised that Chaos didn't get the win here, but yeah, it was a perfectly really good match and really enjoyable. One of the better matches on this show, and one of the more kind of memorable main event caliber matches on the show. Just good, solid stuff. I probably would have preferred it if it was Nakamura versus Marufuji one-on-one, but for the tag match, it was perfectly fine. And Yano got to be his typical set. I think he works better in tag matches than he does in singles, but overall, I did really enjoy this match. Next up is one of my favorite matches on the show, one of the co-main event, or the co-main event. Kenji Muto versus Tetsuya Naito. This is before Naito would develop into the Naito that we know today, which is much better and much stronger. This one is kind of a guy that's being groomed for a top spot, but not quite there yet. And as we would see, he didn't quite click with the audience yet. But Kenji Muto, obviously a legend, so putting Naito in there with him is like a good way to kind of give him something on his resume. Oh, he worked with Kenji Muto at the Tokyo Dome on the January 4th show. So, and honestly, I thought the match was very, very good. I remember when I reviewed Wrestle Kingdom, Wrestle Kingdom's like 1 and 2, and I was like, man, Muto's looking a little old in some of those matches, and then he came back really strong in Wrestle Kingdom 3 and had that really good match with Tanahashi, and here we go, having probably, arguably the best match on the show with Tetsuya Naito, who would become one of the best stars of the generation moving forward. So, yeah, I guess when you got it, you got it, and Kenji Muto went out there and had a hell of a match with Naito. I thought that was really good stuff from them, and it was nice to see the match end on the Muto moonsault. I also kind of enjoyed that. So Muto got the win. Just a very good match. Easily one of the best matches at this event. Maybe even my favorite. The only other one I would not put on, the only other one I would say would challenge it would be Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Minoru Suzuki in the main event for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, which was a very, very good match, and I think both of these guys meshed very, very well together. Tanahashi's got a lot more flash to him. Suzuki, again, like I said, he's the scariest human being in pro wrestling, and it just looks like a crazy person, so meshing them together was a very good idea, and I think it created a very strong, very good main event. Tanahashi got the win, of course. If I have one knock on Tanahashi's matches, and I'm realizing it more and more as I watch more and more of his stuff, the high fly flow sequence that he goes into, where they'll kick out of the first one and then he has to hit like 2 or 3 more to put him away. It's not quite into that finisher festy thing that I criticize WWE for, but it is kind of repetitive. It's like, all right, I know they're going to kick out of the first one, and then Tanahashi's going to hit one where the guy's standing. He's going to hit one where the guy's rolled over on his belly. He's going to hit another one, the final one rolled over on his back to get the win, or something like that. And it gets a little repetitive, but everything else about his matches are so good, I try not to hold it too much against him. And yeah, very strong match, very strong main event of the show. So I think Wrestle Kingdom 6, I think the strength of the show is really in the 2 final matches. Kenji Muto versus Naito, and Tanahashi versus Suzuki. And the opening match was pretty good too. So a lot of good stuff. Some of the middle stuff, it's kind of just okay, take it or leave it, but nothing too bad in there either. So It's like you start off strong, then you get a bunch of stuff that's kind of fine in the middle, and then you end with this huge 1-2 punch with a strong double main event, which is kind of what I was alluding to in Wrestle Kingdom 5, where they didn't really have the strong like double main event that these events typically seem to have. That one was just kind of the one really strong main event, and everything else is kind of ranging from iffy to pretty good. But yeah, I thought Wrestle Kingdom 6, on the strength of its double main event, I thought was the better show of the two. Although I will say I am 6 Wrestle Kingdoms in, and I haven't seen one as good as 9, 10, or 11, which are the first 3 that I watched when I started watching New Japan semi-regularly. And I don't know if that's just me being biased towards the stuff that introduced me into New Japan, and me going backwards. I'm just holding it to a more critical eye. I don't know. I think the best one so far in my reviews would be Wrestle Kingdom 3. I think that one is the strongest event of the first 6, but we'll see how 7 and 8 go. I'm really looking forward to watching 8, because it's basically the kickoff point to building up the main event to Wrestle Kingdom 12, so I think it's a perfect one to end on. So sometime in December, you will be getting that one, the final part of my Wrestle Kingdom review series, as I touch up on Wrestle Kingdom 7 and Wrestle Kingdoms 8. But that is all I have for you now, so until next time, y'all have a good one.